Hello and welcome back to LDC FM. You're tuning into our podcast featuring interviews with our community of independent designers and industry guests. We'll be discussing topics of sustainability, conscious design, the future of fashion, tech, and innovation. This podcast has been recorded alongside an Instagram Live, so apologies for any technical issues prior to tuning in. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Rebecca and I am the founder and CEO of Lone Design Club, and welcome to my Monday meetups. Today we are going to be live with a very special guest, somebody who I have known with quite a long time. Her name is Eleanor O'Leary and she is the founder of The Better Brand Consultant. Eleanor specializes in brand consultancy, but in particular in PR, and works with many wonderful sustainable and ethical brands, from Rubies in the Rubble, which is a condiment startup, through to fashion and lifestyle brands. She has worked with Frank Green, as well as Sustainable Angle, and various other incredible sustainable brands. And here she comes through. Great! Hi, Eleanor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We had a little trouble on the old Zoom. Little technical Wi-Fi issues, right? But we're fine. We're on live now.
We're fine now. We're good now. Yeah.
So welcome. Thank you for joining me on live. I'm super excited to have you. To have you join us. And I was just saying that it's that strangely we've known each other for quite a long time. Like we've kind of we've known each other. We've had conversations, which is quite unusual, in this world to kind of pop in and out. So it's great to finally get you on the live and to have like a proper chat.
Yeah. I think it was probably about a year ago now that we bumped into each other at the Albright, and I was a big fan of LDC for a long time before that. So yeah, it's amazing to get online with you guys and have a little chat about PR, especially at this moment in time.
Definitely. It's really exciting. And it's great because we also knew each other a little bit before, vaguely. I know you've worked with or some of our brands. I know you did some brand consulting for some of them. So I think it was Luxtra was one of the brands.
Yeah, Luxtra. So Jess from Luxtra and I have known each other for quite some time. And there's a few others. There's you do a lot of stuff with Studio by Pia, an amazing lingerie designer. I think there's a handful, but there's the guys that kind of spring to mind at the moment. So
it's great. It's great. It is a small world, and I love that. I mean, one of the things that I love about the Better Brand Consultant are the brands that you choose to work with all have such wonderful, sustainable, ethical, transparent messages. And I think it's amazing that you're so you're so strong about the brands that you choose to work with, and something that we can all definitely, as consumers as well, bring more into our daily lives about the choices that we're making in terms of consumption. So it's great. Cool.
Yeah, well, it was kind of something that came about 5 years ago now. I was working in a big London agency specifically on fashion brands, and kind of fell out of love with the way that things were done and wanted to somehow be back in the industry, but with a more a slant that kind of matched my values a bit more. So I'm doing it now, which is great.
Yeah, amazing. So let's go back a little bit then. So tell us a little bit about how you got started before the Better Brand Consultant. What were you up to and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so fashion has always been my first love. It was something as a teenager that I knew I wanted to work in. I knew I wanted to work in the industry, but I didn't get that GCSE in art, so I couldn't really go down the design route. So I thought, how else can I do it? And asked around, and long story short, ended up in fashion PR, working with a very well-known London lifestyle agency on brands like Cath Kidston and Amazon Fashion and Victoria's Secret.
Right.
And the kind of brands that they look very good on a CV. But I think for me, I didn't really. I got to a point where maybe I'd fallen out of love with the way things were done, and became very conscious of my role as a PR in sending out press releases to try and encourage people to buy more stuff, which they may or may not need. And so I had a moment about 5 years ago where I thought, well, what do I want to be doing? Like, what's the value that I can offer? And I got really excited by the idea of working with up and coming creatives, designers, sustainable, ethical, purpose-led brands, and really bringing everything that I'd learned from a big brand agency side of things and being able to apply that to the guys who are going to be the big brands of tomorrow, effectively.
Amazing.
So yeah, so that was 5 years ago, and you know, a journey's kind of taken me through to other agencies, to in-house, to I spent a couple of years working with Innocent, which isn't fashion, but it is sustainability. And learned a lot there, and yeah, had the confidence to set up the Better Brand Consultant back in the early days of 2018, and very quickly got my first client, which was Frank Green. And since then, I've been so fortunate to work with exactly the kind of people that I want to work with, and they really are exciting companies that are kind of that sort of 3 to 7 year sweet spot, and they're ready and they're eager and they want to change things, and they've got a real vision of how to do things better. So yeah, so that's what I do.
Great, that's amazing. Cool. So fantastic, great little intro. Okay. So for everybody watching this evening, basically what we want to get out of today is we've got designers and we've got customers and we've got industry. We've got a mix of everybody. So we want to make this super conversational and interesting for everyone. On the customer level, this is such a great opportunity to communicate or to connect with somebody who's so sustainably led, which I think is amazing. So I'm hoping we can hear some great tips on consumption, a little bit about what you're seeing at the moment with lockdown and how we can use this time effectively, and you know, to think a bit more consciously about what we buy. And then on the designer side, I can see a few of our designers coming in. So I've seen Saint Hilaire, Maria from Saint Hilaire, and I can see Kevin from Bighorn, and I've seen a couple of others, and I know that they're probably all very eager to hear your tips on, probably first of all, what is going on right now. How does a small business, how do we weather this as small businesses, as little brands? How do we get through this? Where are the opportunities, and where should we be focusing? So I think it's going to be a really interesting, really meaty conversation that we can have tonight, and hopefully everyone will get something super exciting out of it.
For sure. Sounds good.
Cool. Great. So let's start off. Okay, cool. So let's start off on the kind of customer side. So what are we seeing right now in terms of PR, publications, and content? I feel like there's so much content. How can we navigate this?
Yeah, great question to start with, and one that has a very meaty answer. So I guess I would start by saying that the PR industry goes hand in hand with the media industry, and both have been in this complete state of flux over the past 10 years as we've navigated, declining print figures, rise in online content, but also a real desire for offline experiences as well. And I think often in marketing, we make the mistake of just pouring all of our energy into online, click-through rates, where's the traffic, all of that stuff's important. But I think we need to remember that we are human beings as well as human doings, and nothing can really replicate that offline experience that you get when you go shopping and you stumble across something that you love, or you can feel it in your hands, the craftsmanship, you get to speak to the person who created it. These are really important things that I think are going to hold us in good stead as we move into this kind of new way of doing things, and we'll come back onto that later. But yeah, I think the PR industry has very much been trying to find its feet with this kind of shifting landscape, and that's normal. I'm always quite skeptical of those who come out and they say they have the answer for the next 10 years. There's no way you can do that, because everything's moving, technology's moving at this exponential rate. When I started my work, I was literally posting press releases in a post office, and now the only thing you post is online. And I think over the past 10 years we've heard bloggers of the future, influencers of the future, AI influencers of the future. There's always something new to get excited about. However, these things don't often last, or they move into something else. So I think the industry is kind of moving. It's shifting, and the best thing that you can do is get informed yourself. And I often think a lot of people work with boutique agencies, or they'll work with bigger agencies if they've got the bigger budget. But once you start outsourcing that stuff to other people, yes, they are the experts, and they are they have the time and this is what they do. I think as an owner, as somebody who's employing a PR, you need to have a certain level of understanding as to what the industry looks like and how working with a PR can really deliver for your business. Because I think there are a lot of people out there still doing like, oh, you know, pay us £500 a month for a retainer, press releases, send it to a database. That doesn't really work for anyone anymore. I'm a big believer in partnerships, in collaboration, in co-branding, in working together to leverage one another's audiences, because ultimately when it comes to marketing or PR or audience insight, you know, you'll have an audience that buy into lots of different brands. But if you can bring those brands together, especially the ones that are ethical, sustainable, led by this sense of craftsmanship, you'll get a much broader reach. So what's the other thing I would say? The other thing I would say is that at the moment, I'm seeing the quality of stories change. So there's a huge focus, obviously, from towards loungewear. You know, how to look good in your Zoom, like what kind of cool tops to wear when you're on a Zoom call. But I think we're also seeing a real shift into how to buy into stuff that lasts, how to buy stuff that's built to last. And as we're all kind of clearing out our closets and looking at the necessities that we need in life, what are the things that we want to invest in that are really beautiful and a real expression of us as people, and how are we using fashion in a creative way rather than just a way where you can fill up pages and pages of a magazine with a bunch of product placement. How are we really loving fashion again? So yeah, that would be what I'd say about PR.
Yeah, amazing. That's great. We've got a couple of questions in here which I'm going to read out. So one of them, what do you find is your greatest challenge as PR promoting sustainability, all the while at the end of the day still representing products that is in effect consumption? I think this is a really great question, and we get asked it a lot, especially at Lone Design Club, supporting small independent brands. And we're constantly saying, you know, buy sustainable, buy ethical, buy transparent, understand where products are from. But we do get this a lot. Then shouldn't I just stop buying? So I think this is a really interesting topic. I mean, what's your kind of take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, in a perfect world, all of our priorities would be completely focused on, you know, fulfilling ourselves inwardly rather than outwardly. You know, and this is something that, you know, I think we'll see. I think we'll see a huge boost in an education economy. I think people will go back to offline experiences. I think they'll be appreciating human connection a lot more. This is all good stuff. However, we also have you know, a capitalist consumerist culture that's been spanning sort of 3 or 4 generations in this century that we need to unpick and unravel. And I think if we can do that by bringing forward people who have real heart in what they do, that's setting the best example. So I'm here to kind of big up those guys and show them what I mean, you know, I'm not going to be showing them what Amazon Fashion do, but I have worked on these huge global brands, and I kind of know the nuts and bolts of how they run their business and how they aim high to position themselves as a brand. And I'm really keen to do that with as many independent brands as possible.
Amazing. And so going back to kind of earlier, we touched on this. What can small brands do right now? Or what kind of, I don't know, your initial kind of small actions that you feel all small brands should be doing now to prepare through, or, you know, we're kind of mid through now, but to continue through this, to come out stronger? What are your initial kind of tips and takeaways in terms of PR?
Yeah, I mean, you know, to be honest, the first thing I would say is make sure that as a person you are okay, because you know, there's a lot of focus on brands need to do this and we need to do that, but actually if you are your brand, you're not, you know, in a good place and you're not feeling great, then it doesn't matter how much outpouring you do, you have to really look after yourself. And I'm a big believer in you know, just being able to take a step back and reflect and think, how am I feeling today and what can I take on? Because this is monumental. We're in this monumental period in time that none of us have experienced before. So I think for me to sit and glibly say, oh, we'll get up earlier and write a to-do list isn't gonna cut it this time. So make sure that you are okay, would be my first piece of advice. And then I think also just kind of review the level of kind of busyness that we put on ourselves to be super busy and super productive and doing things and not having enough time, and just treat this moment as like a bit of a pause where you get to go back and you get to focus on where you want to spend your energy, how you're looking after yourself, how much can you put into your business, because this is the conversation that I'm part of and that I'm hearing from a lot of independent business owners. You know, it's different for everybody. Some people are like, this could potentially be the end to my business, and that's devastating. And then there are others who are saying, you know what, I'm actually going to completely review my business model and maybe make less but work with these people so that I get it out in this way. So don't be hard on yourself. You know, understand people are dealing with things in different ways. That's the healthy mindset. And then on a more practical level, I think look at what resources there are out there for you to start being able to kind of build in your own mini press office, right? So, you know, there are plenty of things that are available online that you can download and that you can read. I prefer to work with people on a one-to-one approach because I think it is a huge learning. Anyone can just download a free download and, you know, absorb it, but often it raises more questions than answers, and I think people really want that kind of hand holding. So that's the service that I offer. But then there are also things that you can get involved with, like trials, you know, like a 2-week trial for a media database service. Just test it out and see, and then once you've done that, you can kind of build your own database and get that off the ground. So, you know, there is a space and time for just a little bit of admin while everything's going on.
And I just want to shout out right now people that have just joined us. So Eleanor is brand consultant, PR guru, basically. Small brands out there, if you are looking for some support, Eleanor is going to be running some clinics for many brands to get involved in, anything to try and help through the current situation. So do look out for those. If you have any questions throughout, please put them in the chat little comment box. We are reading out questions as we go. And any customers who have joined that are interested in Loan Design Club and sustainability, please remember all the brands we're talking about here tonight in terms of sustainability, ethics, responsible fashion are available on our website. No obligation to buy, but do please go and check out their stories, hear and learn more about them. This is a great opportunity to think about what we purchase, as Eleanor said, to consume a little bit more sustainably and responsibly and know where our products are from, to support our local economies, and to come together as a community, which I think is another interesting point I want to talk a little about, especially on the PR side. I've had a lot of conversations with people saying this is a really interesting time on a global scale where we're all coming together more in terms of community. It's very much an equalizer, you know, and I think that's super interesting. And I certainly feel that sense of camaraderie. And I think it's, you know, with brands supporting one another, people collaborating, wanting to go deeper into that story behind a brand. This is such an incredible time for community. What are you kind of seeing on that level, especially in the PR world? And what advice would you give brands and customers around that?
Around collaborating?
Yeah, collaboration, community right now, and the sensitivity.
So I think that's a really beautiful point to make. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, you know, whenever we read about fashion these days, it's either through a really negative lens. It's either, you know, fashion is all fashion's fast, it's unethical, it's unsustainable, retail is dying, you know, Philip Green's been handsy, you know, or Boohoo's doing really well in the finances. So, you know, there's really been like a good fashion news story for a really long time. And I think obviously we're seeing the way that the community are pulling together to provide PPE, which is incredible. I think from a more kind of business and PR perspective, you know, it's only by coming together that we will be able to make the most out of this opportunity. It would be unlikely that, you know, like a small designer now would be able to have property in Oxford Circus and have a standalone store. But together, you know, there's nothing to say that through this there could be some kind of opportunity where, and this is exactly what you guys do, you take premium boutique spaces in central London to provide an access point for anybody wanting to experience something a bit different. Because I think the fashion industry, especially the high street, has become so samey. It's all the same 5 stores within a two kind of 20-meter radius of one another. And I think that's what's brought about a lot of the fatigue. And I think that's why a lot of people aren't really buying as much, because it just all looks the same. And so, yeah, I think what you do with Lone Design Club and the brands that you work with really injects kind of a breath of fresh air into the high street. Also, I think, you know, it's very competitive in terms of pricing. You've got, you know, high-end high street designer, but also kind of more affordable things. If people are just popping in and like the look of a necklace, you know, it's not necessarily an investment piece. It's a nice buy. So I really see there being a huge opportunity for you guys to have a standalone space and to really be the future of the fashion industry. But it is only going to happen by collaborating and supporting one another and really staying true to those values. Because I think I'm keeping my eye on what Harrods do, on what Liberty will do, on, you know, Hobby Nicks, all of these department stores that are known for bringing forward these amazing fashion brands. And you know, I very much see all the work you're doing kind of being able to sit side by side with that, because the quality is incredible and the people that you work with are true designers. So yeah, I have a lot of hope.
Amazing. That is good to hear. And you touched on a really interesting point, and it's something that I was talking about the other day. Boohoo, so their sales are up by 57%. I don't quote me on that. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I was very much under the impression with this that we were seeing a trend of looking more at supporting local economies, supporting more sustainable and ethical brands. And I think it was in a call I was in with Fashion Roundtable, Tamara, and she said,
"Oh, I love Tamara.
She's amazing," and she was like, "Boohoo's sales have gone right up." This is really interesting, and this is something I think for small designers to be aware of, because there's going to be pros and cons to this situation. How do you think that reflects on consumption that we're seeing and how brands should be? What does that mean for designers right now?
Yeah, so I think Boohoo did an aggressive sales strategy. I think that's what happened. They you know, and they have an incredibly loyal following.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite difficult to challenge that, because they very much meet a need that is out there for people who want that, you know, very glamorous, very fashion, kind of trend-led way of shopping. So, you know, I find that the danger with Boohoo is also, I mean, there are many, but the way that their sales, the way that they report their business results, you know, nobody can really compete with them. And that's almost a good thing, because nobody should be doing behind the scenes Boohoo practices that Boohoo are doing. However, when you work on the inside of a big fashion brand, who perhaps, as I have done, who you know, do have high street stores, on that Monday morning trading meeting, everyone's looking at how the other online retailers and physical store retailers have performed that week, and Boohoo's consistently in the top 5. And so it makes people think, well, how can we be more like Boohoo? And that really is not the business conversation we should be having. It should be like, they're over here doing this, how can we be better than that? And almost, you know, so yeah, it's tough, you know. It's hard. But I don't think you can necessarily compete, and nor should you, with fashion brands that produce in that way, because it's a completely different business model and need. And I actually say this in my consultations. You know, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, you've worked with this brand, and we really want to be like them." But I'm like, well, that brand has 20 years of a legacy, and they've been bought out by an even bigger brand, and they have a team of, you know, 50 in their marketing. So how can you compete? You have to, I think, set your own measures of success and work towards that.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Yeah, that is very interesting. And you touched on something in there that I wanted to go back to. So in terms of that thing, because I feel like we get asked this question a lot by our smaller designers, is, you know, what's happening now in the current situation? And again, I want to be like this brand, or I want to do that. In the current situation, how can we find ourselves? How can we find our own purpose from this? Because I think this is something we get asked quite a lot. And we get asked, especially then, how do I execute? You know, do I find the emails from PR, you know, from editors, and do I email them? Do I go on DM? Do I How do I then approach it? What would you suggest for small brands out there for now?
So for me, this kind of concept of purpose is very popular, and I think people are doing it very well when it comes to running workshops and, you know, selling books that are like, what's your why? My personal experience is that finding my purpose has been a journey. It's taken me, you know, it's probably taken me 5 years. It probably happened that moment I woke up in this agency and I was like, I can't do this anymore. That kick-started it, and actually it was a very long and quite tricky process, because I was like, well, if I'm not doing this, what am I doing? You know, so I would say that to find true purpose, and then, you know, on a spiritual level, I think your individual purpose and your work purpose are two different things.
Yeah.
So it depends on how much you want to integrate it. So I don't really like throwing the word purpose around too much, just because recently I've discovered it means something completely different for me, and I'm like, that makes sense. And also, I don't want people to think that their sole purpose is to be in this planet producing stuff, because actually, again, we're human beings, not human doings. Like the work is bigger than that, right? So take the pressure off the purpose. Come back to, you know, why are you creating what you want to create beyond, you know, there's a need for it with millennials who want to buy more sustainable brands, beyond any kind of labels that you've put on yourself, and there's like some ego work there. You know, go back to, what is the craftsmanship behind this? How am I creating something that when it's left behind lasts? Who is it impacting? You know, these are the kind of questions that I think are more important now than simply, what is my purpose? Because I think you can do some stuff around purpose to create something that sounds really good and nice and you feel good about it, and that's your purpose. But I think it's very different. So that's that. When it comes to approaching journalists and editors and DMing, it is an etiquette thing. You know, I think a lot of people don't want people approaching them on their private Instagrams with, look at my new bag range. You know, it is a skill. You have to, and it's I think we've really lost sight of what it takes to build a professional relationship with somebody, because of everything that's happening online. You know, we can easily get people to sign up to our newsletter and then stick them on our MailChimp list. We can easily like do a few, I don't know, events, and all of a sudden we've got a connection. Whereas actually what you're paying a PR for is their time and their experience building those connections and making this whole stuff effortless. And you can do that too, but it takes a little bit of time. And I think, you know, journalists are humans too, and they have their own stuff going on. And I think it's very difficult at the moment to approach people, because you don't really know what their experience is on the other side of that email. So I think you have to handle it with a bit of care. And yeah, I think, you know, just be very targeted in your approach. Your products might not be for everybody, but they will definitely be for those who are style conscious and those who do want to invest. And that actually means that your media outreach list is going to be a little bit smaller than a Boohoo's, for example. So yeah.
Interesting. And you touched on something interesting about you know, the value of PR, and I think this is really important, because I do agree with you. You know, there are different ways to communicate to people. There are different etiquettes, and of course, if you can, the ideal is to go through someone like yourself, a good PR agent that you have a great relationship with. And I guess on that note, then, what kind of communication, I feel like I've completely blanked on my question now.
Okay.
It was a good one too. What was I getting at? So for small brands that do, or that are looking to work with a PR, you know, this is it. Okay. Where should we be looking to put the value in that relationship now? Because like you said, things have changed. You know, we're not now walking down the street. We're not picking up the Stylist magazine. Same with ES. We're not, you know, buying publications as much, which was changing anyway. We're now all digital, but we're bombarded. Our inboxes, you know, it's crazy. So how should we be managing those relationships, you know, to get into publications, but also with our end customer?
Yeah, so this is why I don't just focus on PR. I look at social, I look at customer journey, I look at, you know, overall marketing, content, tone of voice, that kind of stuff, because I do think it's not any one thing anymore. I think, you often, when you work with a third party, you get what you pay for. So again, like if you're working with a boutique agency, you might find that you see the owner of the agency meet at meeting times at pitch and when the invoice needs to get sent, but actually somebody who's actually working on your business might be 5 or 10 years younger than you are and is fresh into this, and their contacts might not be as good. So you might not get the results that you expect. So so you do have to put a certain amount of trust into into the person who's doing your PR. But the way that I work is I'm like, what does the business need right now? Because that could be a mix of trade and a couple of pieces of product placement. Actually, in my So You Think You Know PR workshop that I did with you guys just before lockdown happened, I played a little game of like which piece of coverage delivered the most sales, and on there I've got a picture of a Cath Kidston hot water bottle I got in Vogue for the Christmas gift guide versus a shirt from another brand on Holly Willoughby. Obviously the Holly Willoughby shirt's going to sell out like that, but it's not Vogue. So I think we need to start reframing how we feel about PR. When people come to me and they're like, oh, I want press, I want to be on these column inches, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, what news do you read? Like, how do you take your news? Because I could get you coverage in Vogue, but it's probably not going to deliver the sales that you expect. It's going to be nice to have the Vogue logo on your website and churn that out, but it's not going to be a big a commercial piece of coverage in the same way that something else can be. So I think having your own understanding of press and being really clear around what resonates with you is really important. And like you said, stylists have now moved on to creating an app and a podcast to kind of pivot their business through all of this. Evening Standard has now gone to being delivered door to door in various different neighborhoods and zones, which I'm not really agree with, because I think we should all get access to the wonderful Evening Standard. But this is it, the media are shifting themselves because they're like, well, we need to protect journalism, and that is a completely different webinar and conversation, which again I'd love to speak to you guys about. But journalism in itself is having its own battles at the moment. So for small businesses, PR, be really straight around what's going to make you feel good. Somebody comes to you and they said, I've got this coverage, you're going to be like, yes. That even if it's just a little bit of an ego fluffer, you're like, I've always read this magazine, I love it, thank you so much. Then what's going to help you commercially? Is it going to be a thought leadership piece in Drapers? Is it going to be something in Business of Fashion? Is it going to be something with Fashion Roundtable? So you mentioned Tamra earlier, and they are just incredible. I love her. It's amazing, so good. What's going to help you kind of sow the seeds to get to where you want to take your business, because none of this happens overnight, and it's definitely not going to be happening overnight now.
And that's just on that point, this is such a great one. I love it, because so many people say, oh, it happens overnight, and then I'm like, what do you mean by overnight? So how do you define overnight?
When I work with my clients, they'll be like a big win, with everything, everybody that I work with on a kind of 3-month, 6-month, year-long campaign, I focus for like 1 or 2 big wins. Like, this is what's going to repay my fees. Like, that's that. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it might happen quickly for me because I've got the connections and the contacts. So you can have a celebrity where you could have Meghan Markle wear your shirt on a tour that she's doing for something or other, but the steps that need to be taken to even get to that, I mean, that's considered an overnight success, but the groundwork that goes into that is monumental. And often it is it's timing and it's luck, and it's a whole mixture of those things. And I think this is why PR gets that bad rep, because it isn't as tangible as an advert or like digital marketing. It's that it is all about kind of who you know and how you flex those relationships. So this is the kind of the dark art, as it were. But to that point about overnight success as well, I mean, I see so many independent designers, and their work is brilliant, their products are amazing, and a lot of the time it's who are your backers as well. You know, there are a lot of people who kind of come from a place of privilege and are able to launch into this world and do very well out of it. And then I think there are others that, you know, each day feels like a hustle. So it's, and we don't really talk about this enough, I don't think, in business, in leading business, in Financial Times, Bloomberg, you know, the business pages.
Yeah,
I don't think there's big enough awareness of privilege in the same way that maybe we're seeing in like the online like female founder community, where we talk quite openly about this stuff. So yeah,
that's super interesting. Amazing. Now let's talk a little bit about your clinic, because you do have a clinic coming up.
yes.
So tell us a little bit about what to expect, because I also don't know a lot about this, and I'm very curious to hear what your plans are and what you're thinking of doing and how you're going to be supporting.
Yeah, so the clinic idea was born out of the one-to-ones that I do. So this is when I work with people for an hour to sort of 90 minutes on their top 3 business objectives. And, you know, obviously we've known each other for quite some time, and I'm clearly a huge fan of what you guys do. So Amanda and I were having a chat around how could we collaborate on this and provide something that's of real value. Because I think there are plenty of kind of webinars and online things that you can get involved with, but it's not bespoke. You know, it's very top line, like this is how you write press release, fine. But I'm like, if it's my time and it's your time and this is our time together, like how will we work on something that you can take away and be like, okay, I've saved myself a lot of hassle by not doing that one thing, or I even thought of this. Thank you. So what the clinic kind of format, what we'd like to do is to have a very kind of closed set of maybe 3 to 5 business owners who have like this, have one issue, or there's like one thing that they're like, oh my God, I really need to know about this. And then also create a bit of a discussion, because I think often people have the same questions, but they're very different answers. So this is about me being able to bring everything that I know from, you know, my previous life in big agencies, in-house, and everything that's going on now, and to be able to say, like, listen, this is what you need to focus on. This is the business critical thing, and this, don't even worry about it, because it might not be existing in 3 months' time. You know, things like press days, for example. I don't really know how we're going to do press days. Things like sample send outs. You can't send your samples to a publishing house anymore. So what's the alternative? So I think we're going to have to be a little bit savvier about how we manage this stuff. And I know that a lot of people do want to do PR themselves. I think they want to be that connection between the you know, their brand and the media, and that's brilliant. And they're very savvy. You know, they don't need to be taught how to pitch themselves or how to promote themselves. They are their own PR. And so it's just about being able to kind of upskill them. And like I said, we're talking a little bit about etiquette, how you approach journalists, or like who should you collaborate with, or what kind of head of marketing somewhere is looking for X, Y, Z. You know, all of this stuff that I basically spend my day doing, I want to open up and give to people in a way that feels like it's going to really benefit them long term.
Yeah, amazing. I think you touched on something super interesting about collaboration again. We've spoken about collaboration a lot, and I think this is another way that small business owners can be really supporting one another through this time as well. Is, you know, we're all going through similar experiences, so talking openly to somebody in a similar position to you that also has a small brand, not just collaborating on product or I don't know, a marketing opportunity, but actually just having discussions and resource sharing with the likes of yourself and other experts, I think is fantastic. And it just makes things, it's having those conversations right now that we all need to get through this, because like we've said, this is uncharted territory. We don't know what's going to happen, what is happening, the formula, what's going to happen in kind of 6 months time. But the more we can have conversations. And one thing that just kind of came to mind when we talked about this, and one thing that I'm personally really struggling with is there is so much content. I'm being bombarded by Vogue Business, by BOF, by all these tech female founder groups I'm signed up to, and Fast Company, and and my inbox is literally full of unread newsletters, because I am so like overwhelmed by all this information. But I also know how important it is to be trying to stay up to date, because we're all like, what is happening? What is the next step? When is lockdown released? What do we do then? How do we navigate business? Like, what do I do? So I need to absorb as much information as I possibly can. But my God, it is overwhelming. It is so overwhelming.
Yeah. And I think the thing is,
I'm sure I'm not the only one. So what can we do?
Oh, not at all. I think you need to, so this is a brilliant question, and it's something that I've spent the past 2 weeks trying to unpick. I mean, I've always been, you know, I have a huge respect for the online world, but you know, I started back in the time where we didn't even have Instagram, and I kind of view everything with a little bit of like, is this kind of emperor's new clothes? So, you know, I think we need to, we're not alone. I think this is going to be another kind of culture shift. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, we started talking about digital detoxing, and that was about just getting off Twitter. And now I think when all of this screen time is so unavoidable, you know, people are going to go back to simple things like crafting and cooking and baking sourdough. It's because we are human. We're not meant to be here sitting at screens between 9 and 5. Like, this was never the plan. And this is just the kind of overwhelm, I think, which is making us wake up and be like, oh shit, what am I doing with my life? So I think, yes, I think understand why these things are created, why people want your attention so much, and just take back the power of your inbox and your newsletters. You know, before it would be super easy to just be like, oh, I quite like this thing, yeah, I'll sign up for a newsletter. But before you know it, you're just subject to somebody else's marketing revenue marketing funnel. You know, that's what you know, it's, and I think when we're all singing from the same how to scale your business and grow your newsletter database and create your marketing funnel download, we're just making the world a really noisy space to be, and one that's really hard to shift from. And I think this kind of feeds into the media at large, which is something that I've been speaking quite a bit about over the past kind of week or so, and how to kind of make sense of media and also protect your mental health, because it is overwhelmed, and that's serious. It's not just like, oh, I'm so busy, or it's overwhelming. You know, we're not meant to be overwhelmed by this level of information. So it's up to you to put the kind of boundaries in place. And honestly, like, we know that newsletters are created just to keep the newsletter churn. It's exactly like my press releases 5 years ago. So if you are getting these newsletters and they're all unread, you know, it's likely that they're saying the same stuff. You could probably just read one. I know this is so like anti-marketing, but it's true. And I think it's better that we realize this now. And then when we are kind of adjusting and back out in the world, I think we'll have a newfound respect for print. You know, people have been saying print is dying for a really long time. The print press, I think, is going to come back, but in a different way. I think people are going to respect the moment of sitting down with a magazine and a newspaper and getting the information that they want in a way that they can control, because you actually can't control your inbox in the same way. You have no control over like people messaging you at, you know, 8:56 on a Tuesday morning. So I think this is going to be the next big shift,
so
personally.
On that, and I totally agree with you. So on that note then, because I think this is a valuable lesson for small brands, especially those ones that are pushed for time. You know, you're a one-man band, or there's just a couple of you. You can't do everything. You can't probably work at the same capacity you were. So then how do we be really strategic in terms of marketing and PR right now? Where do we focus our efforts? What should the big focus be right now?
It's hard to say, because you know, I wouldn't want to come out with something that felt like I was just saying it for the sake of saying it to make everyone feel okay. You know, I think everything that we've talked about is completely valid. There's more content going online. Advertisers are spending more online because they know that we're at our screens more. Print's kind of having a bit of a weird moment. We're all itching to, like, we all just want to get back out. And I think it is a little bit of waiting that's involved, which isn't the answer that everybody wants, because it means that, you know, we all have a freak out around money and how do we keep our business afloat and how do we pay, and it's difficult. It's really difficult, and I think it would be kind of irresponsible to say otherwise. However, you can keep busy if that's what you want to do. If you want to still feel like you are, you know, moving forward and you're not going to let this slow you down, you can do the kind of the admin, the press releases, get your media like database up in order, get familiar with the press that you like and you enjoy, and start engaging with those people from a place that feels really authentic. I think a journalist is going to really value somebody getting in touch and being like, listen, I'm a small business owner. I've taken this time out to really look at the press. I found your article. I've looked at your style on Instagram. I think it's incredible. And if it's not inappropriate, I'd like to tell you a little bit more, or just kind of point them in the right. Because ultimately what happens in the PR agency is it's just a lot of computers, a lot of databases, and firing releases out to the media database. It's a glorified sales job. So if you can take some of that into your own hands, that's probably the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like, I feel like big takeaways from this are, first, phase one, pause, reflect, and use this time to really understand yourself, to get into a good space personally, understand your business, what you're trying to achieve and what you want to achieve. And I guess like kind of celebrating the fact that we can just pause for a moment and just reflect, not be at this critical pace. So I think that's amazing. And I think that's a really important lesson. And then I feel like the other part of this is you do things, but think about quality. And I guess also what I feel like's come out of this is data and doing things that really matter or are actually having an impact that you can see a result. I think that's really interesting, is let's use this time to reflect, to pause, to evaluate, and I guess progress in a balanced way. That means what we're doing is quality, we're happy with the actions we're taking, and we're moving somewhere in a more, I guess, strategic direction with our businesses and ourselves personally. Oh, you're back. I think we lost you. But I think that kind of sums everything up, right? Hopefully.
Yeah. And the only thing I'd add to that would be, if you have a business, if you have created something, a creative business, and been working on it up until now, nothing is wasted. That is such a huge learning. It's so to go out into the world and say, this is me, these are my designs, this is my creativity, I've created a supply chain, I've got a marketing campaign, I've got an Instagram. To have built something like that, like, it's the best education and experience that you can have. So if you are in a position where you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to walk away from this, you cannot fail. There is no failure. Everything is a learning, and it's hard. It's a really difficult time, but I feel the pressure for myself. I feel it for other people, and just know that you can do no wrong. Everything is a next step in whatever your journey is. But if you've even got a business to this stage, that is an incredible achievement, and it's rare. I think the other thing is we think that starting a business is like this thing that we can all do, and in some ways it is, but in others, another story. So congratulations to anyone who's got this far, and look ourselves.
Yeah, amazing. Great. Well, I feel like we have had a really meaty 45-minute chat. It's gone on longer. I hope it's okay that we went quite a bit over, but it was super interesting. I hope everyone's really enjoyed it. Just to recap, Eleanor is running some clinics with small designers, focusing on PR and what you can do now. They're going to be very tailored, very focused, and very supportive. So if you are interested, do check out our website, DM us, DM Eleanor, any questions that you may have. We're here, we want to help. We're all going through this right now. So, we're here to support each other. So please, any questions, do DM either of us. We'll be happy to kind of chat and help where we can. But Eleanor, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll be in touch. We'll chat soon.
Lovely. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eleanor. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much again for tuning in. Head to our website, loandesignclub.com, and find more LDCFM podcasts, or discover more about our independent designers online.